Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Lori Johnson.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. The latest deadline has passed, and there's no word on the fate of the hostages being held by ISIS. A prisoner exchange was supposed to happen Thursday, but ISIS failed to produce evidence the hostages were still alive. Mark Martin has this update.
It's unknown if a Japanese journalist and a Jordanian military pilot are still alive, hours after the latest ISIS deadline passed. The terror group is silent on the matter. The last communication of ISIS, released Wednesday night, is the voice of the captured Japanese journalist Kenji Goto.
If Sajida al-Rishawi is not ready for exchange for my life at the Turkish border, the Jordanian pilot will be killed immediately.
ISIS has called for a prisoner exchange, wanting Jordan to release Sajida al-Rishawi, an Iraqi woman convicted of terrorism there. Jordan's government has said it would agree to the exchange, but one big condition has to be met.
We want to see a proof of life of the Jordanian pilot, and then we can talk about the exchange between Sajid al-Rishawi and the Jordanian pilot.
But the proof never came. The pilot's father pleaded with ISIS to release his son. He said Jordanians and Palestinians would respond in a very positive way to ISIS if the group spares a Muslim brother. Journalist Kenji Goto's wife fears this prisoner exchange could be her husband's last chance to live. She said she has been contacted by ISIS. Meanwhile, if the swap happens, authorities say that means letting go Sajida al-Rishawi, a staunch terrorist with close ties to the leaders of ISIS. She was sentenced to prison for her involvement in an al-Qaeda attack on a hotel in Amman, Jordan in 2005. Around 60 Jordanians, many of them attending a Muslim wedding, lost their lives in that attack. Even if Jordan and ISIS agree to the prisoner exchange, it's not known what will happen next to the Japanese hostage, who has 2 daughters, an infant and a 2-year-old. Mark Martin, CBN News.
An Egyptian militant group with ties to the Islamic State is taking credit for deadly attacks on more than a dozen army and police targets in the restive Sinai Peninsula. The coordinated strikes came late Thursday and killed at least 26 security officers. Officials say at least 1 car bomb was set off outside a military base. At the same time, mortars were fired at the base, toppling some buildings and leaving soldiers buried under the debris. An army spokesman blamed former President Mohammed Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood for orchestrating the attack.
Recovery efforts are still underway at a Mexican maternity hospital that suffered a massive explosion Thursday. Take a look at this amateur video that captured the terrifying moment. At least 1 adult and 2 babies were killed, and about 70 people were injured in this disaster. It was caused by a gas tank truck explosion. Firefighters and emergency crews raced through rubble as nurses and mothers carried crying infants from the wreckage. Operation Blessing has been on the scene of the tragedy to offer aid from the very beginning. An Operation Blessing worker lives in the neighborhood and felt the powerful blast from his home. He's helped to organize a mobile kitchen effort with Operation Blessing's Mexico team, feeding thousands of meals to rescue workers, doctors, and other first responders there at the scene.
The Senate has passed a bill approving the construction of the Keystone XL oil pipeline, but Thursday's vote still falls short of the threshold needed to override a presidential veto. The bill authorizes construction of the nearly 1,200-mile pipeline to carry oil from Canada to Gulf Coast refineries. Critics say the project would contribute to global warming and also point to the recent Yellowstone spill in Montana as an example of an overall increase in spills. Supporters say the bill would create more jobs and boost energy security.
House Republicans are launching an attempt to replace Obamacare with a new health care law. They'll start by voting next week to repeal the president's law. Then they'll begin working on a replacement bill. The House voted more than 50 times in the past 2 years to repeal the law, or at least parts of the law. But this is the first time they'll vote to repeal it with support of a Republican-controlled Senate. House Republicans promised in the 2010 campaign to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Measles is making a comeback. 15 years ago, health officials declared measles eradicated in the United States because of the measles vaccine. But now many people are opting out of the vaccine, and the highly contagious disease is spreading, with more cases last year than we've seen in 2 decades. 84 cases in 14 states just this month. Even in Arizona, the site of the Super Bowl, 1,000 people are being monitored. But doctors say you don't need to worry about getting measles if your shot record is current.
The most important thing is to be up to date on the vaccines.
They're vaccinated, my kids are healthy.
Most people recover from the measles, but it can be deadly and sometimes causes brain damage and pneumonia.
Former CBS News investigative reporter Cheryl Atkinson says the Obama administration treats some investigative journalists like enemies. Testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee this week, Atkinson said, if you cross the administration with perfectly accurate reporting, they don't like you. You will be attacked and punished. You and your sources may be subjected to the kind of surveillance devised for enemies of the state. Atkinson has filed a lawsuit against the Obama Justice Department over the hacking of her computer and phones. The department disputes those charges.
The IRS is considering new guidelines for both religious and other nonprofit organizations when it comes to speaking out about political issues.
For years, there's been debate over how much pastors and charity leaders can express their political opinions while maintaining their non-exempt status. Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is asking the IRS and nonprofit organizations to work together to clarify just how far charities and churches can go when it comes to political issues.
New IRS guidelines defining political activity and clarifying the restrictions on such activity across the board for nonprofits would be a welcome development.
Whether the church or the organization chooses to exercise that freedom is up to them. We just believe that that decision should be made by the organization and not by the government.
Opponents of past IRS restrictions say limiting a nonprofit's right to speak out concerning political issues is also limiting their right to free speech.
The state of Arizona is doing its best to shut down sex trafficking around this week's Super Bowl. For months, it has focused on training law enforcement and promoting public awareness, and those efforts are making a difference. Authorities know high-profile sporting events like the Super Bowl draw not only large crowds, but large numbers of traffickers. This year, the state tackled the problem head-on with the public awareness campaign. Arizona's not buying it. Helping to get the word out, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Phoenix Suns, and former Cardinal star quarterback Kurt Warner.
When it comes to human trafficking of children, we want the world to know.
We're not buying it.
Arizona's not buying it.
Dominique Rosepowicz studies the connection between trafficking and sporting events. She credits increased law enforcement for deterring traffickers at last year's Super Bowl in New Jersey and believes that success will continue in Phoenix.
I think if you're a trafficker or a pimp in this day and age and you bring a person here to be trafficked, you are asleep at the wheel. The Super Bowl has really sent a message. The NFL has sent a message. Our community has sent a message that sex trafficking will not be tolerated here.
Activist groups like Shared Hope push public awareness, setting up exhibits on college campuses in Arizona and collaborating with community organizations. One group got creative and distributed 20,000 bars of soap with trafficking hotline numbers to Phoenix hotels. One more way a victim could potentially call for help. Kathleen Wynn, who led the fight against trafficking for the Attorney General's office last year, sees a change in the public's understanding of the issue.
4 years ago, you would have been hard pressed in Arizona to find somebody that had heard about trafficking or even believed that it was happening here.
Now, traffickers and buyers face tougher penalties in Arizona, thanks to new legislation and a public that's aware and opposed to the sale of children. And you can find out more about Arizona's campaign to fight trafficking at the Super Bowl at cbnnews.com. Faith in football. We'll take you to Arizona, where preparations are underway for the Super Bowl, and introduce you to athletes who call themselves everyday soldiers for Christ.
Well, Deflategate has dominated the news for days, but now it's time to get ready for the big game. Super Bowl 49 has the makings of an epic championship.
CBN sports reporter Sean Brown is in Arizona. He brings us a story about athletes who use football as a platform to talk about their faith.
Football is, and to play in the NFL is hard. You gotta work out, you gotta grind, like you gotta do what a lot of people don't want to do just to continue to have a job in this league. And to be a Christian, you gotta do the same thing. You gotta get in your word, you gotta go to church, you gotta meditate, you gotta pray. And that's hard too, because everybody has their daily life and they think they know what's best for them. But at the end of the day, you have to do those things and let God tell you what's best for you. I'm an everyday soldier for Christ because I know that he died for my sins and he loves me more than anybody else can love me, and he's the reason why I'm here today.
I think I'm an everyday soldier for Christ because I'm fighting the good fight. You know, the enemy is at work, especially in a business like this. There are a lot of things that you can stumble upon and get into, and I've made my fair share of mistakes over the years. But I think I'm just continuing to try to fight the good fight, and I want as many people to know about Christ and what he can do for your life as I can. So I think this is a great platform for us as Christian athletes to deflect the attention from us. It's not about us this week. I think we should be celebrating what God has done in our lives and blessing us to get to this point. And many of us, believe it or not, are believers. You always hear about the negative things, but there are a lot of good men on this team, a lot of good men that are living for eternity, as I said. And we're just going to try to keep fighting that good fight, one step at a time, one day at a time.
Well, I'm an everyday soldier for Christ because I understand his love for me, and I love him in the back, and we have an awesome relationship, and he died for me, and I love to say I could die for him, but I just want to live my life through him, for him, because of what he did for me on the cross.
No, I'm an everyday soldier for Christ because I know that there's a lot of worldly distractions out there. If it's fame or anything else that can get in your way of walking that narrow path that Jesus laid out for us.
Well, you know, obviously in Ephesians it talks to us about putting on the full armor of God, but you know, right before it talks about us being in a fight, and I think in that you got to realize that you're a soldier. You're a soldier for Christ, and part of being that soldier for Christ, God wants territory for you to go and take over. He wants He's putting people in certain places with their talents, with their gifts, to really be faithful, with what God's given you and what He's privileged you with. So within that fight, within that battle, we have a peace in knowing that God's already won, and we've been equipped for every day, for every moment, to be the best we can be.
I'm an everyday soldier for Christ because I spend time with the Lord every single day. And man, He's my bread. He's the one that sustains me, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without spending time with Him.
Well, you know, you just got to eliminate distractions, and you know they're going to be coming in at all angles for you, right? You know, the devil's out there, just you know, doing everything you can to get you off the path that God's chosen for you. And you know, the big thing is just, you know, you got to have that armor on. You got to deflect everything, right? And just continue walking that path. You can't, you know, and as long as you know that, you know, God's path is the right path, you know, you can't go wrong no matter what. I'm an everyday soldier for Christ because Christ is everything. You know, he died for us, died for our sins, and you know, there's no. I just want to glorify Him in all I can. Really.
Up next, it is Super Bowl weekend, and we've got a great recipe to help you make your party pop. Stay tuned.
Well, whether watching the Super Bowl commercials or the game itself, viewers across the country and around the world will no doubt be eating while watching the game.
Indeed, and much of what people will be eating in their mouths won't be particularly good for them, but CBN's Angela Zadopek whipped up a healthy game day recipe you don't want to miss.
Super Bowl Sunday is such a fun day. You see your friends and family maybe that you haven't seen in forever, and so you really want to minimize your time in the kitchen. So I'm bringing you a recipe. It only takes 10 minutes, and it also meets a lot of dietary needs for those people that are trying to stick to their resolutions. It's vegan, paleo, gluten-free. Hey, you cannot get any healthier than that. What are we gonna make? Guacamole, but with a twist. Okay, so it only takes 10 minutes, and these are all the ingredients you're gonna need. You need 2 avocados, you need a red onion, 1 lime, cilantro, 1 mango, and the twist, sriracha. Scoop the avocado in the bowl, 2 pinches of fresh cilantro, 3 pinches of red onion, 3 tablespoons of mango, and a squeeze of lime. Final kick here, we're gonna add some sriracha. Now, really honestly, just eye this. Do you like things really spicy or just a little spicy? I like things really spicy, but I'm about to put my producer to the taste test. Chris is from Boston.
Tom Brady's innocent.
Yeah, the most appropriate platter for a Patriots fan, I feel like, given the circumstances.
Are you kidding me?
A deflated football. Yes!
If you really want to win over your friends on game day, bring your guacamole and your chips and a deflated football.
Okay, so you gotta try it.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
I want to try it too, actually. So
right.
Cheers.
Here.
Go Seahawks. Go Seahawks. Mmm. Very good.
It is zesty, but good.
So good.
It's really good.
Okay.
You're impressive.
And you know what? For my family that thinks I'm not domestic, this proves you wrong.
It's definitely a little hot.
It's a little hot.
It's definitely very good.
I like it hot.
It's very good.
So we hope you enjoy our game day guacamole.
And you can get that recipe at cbnnews.com. We'll be right back. It is the weekend, and perhaps you're looking for a little family-friendly entertainment. Here with our regular movie reviews is Bob Waliszewski from Plugged In Online, the entertainment review department at Focus on the Family. Bob, let's start with the animated film from George Lucas called Strange Magic. It looks like it has some dark elements. What do you think?
Yeah, it came out last week, and the reason we didn't talk about it last week is because it didn't screen for the press. And that typically tells you that the studios think they've got a bit of a bomb. Film didn't do very well over the weekend, and even though it says from the mind of George Lucas, it nowhere compares to, say, a Pixar film. This animated film kind of tells a story between a beautiful fairy princess and a evil, at least in the start of the movie, looks kind of like a cockroach / demon character who eventually fall in love at the very end. It doesn't work for me. It's a bit of a musical. It's a lot of a musical. We did give it a 3 out of 5 for family friendliness. That's not a terrible rating, but it's also not a 2 solid thumbs up either.
All right. Well, Project Almanac is a teen thriller about time travel. What do you think of it?
Yeah, 5 teenagers discover a device that one of the students' dad invented a decade ago. He's now passed. But once they find out what it can do, they use it for all manner of selfish, hedonistic things, at least at first. By the end of the film, there's one thing they do that's a little bit sacrificial. But it's, can we go back in time and win the lottery? Can we get revenge against a bully? Can we go to a Lollapalooza concert that we missed? Add to that the fact that it's shot in that Blair Witch style, which is maddening here, and the fact that we're led to root for teenagers being intimate with other teenagers. Of course, they've got to go to bed with each other, and we got to root for that. Sadly, there wasn't much in this PG-13 for me to root for personally, and I gave it a 2 out of 5 for family friendliness.
All right, one more. We've got some Academy Award winners in Black or White, starring Kevin Costner. What do you think of this film?
Yeah, and Octavia Spencer, who was in Help. Now, this is a film that I have some mixed feelings about. On one hand, I love the fact that Kevin Costner is a grandfather in this film who, after the death of his wife by a car accident, is the sole protector and has custody of his 7-year-old biracial granddaughter. But at the same time, because of the death of his wife, the fraternal grandmother, Octavia Spencer's character, comes into the picture as well, and she wants custody. Now, it's not a villain versus good guy type situation where, of course, we're rooting for one, person to have custody. Both would be great. They love this little girl. Their finances are different, but we all kind of would say, who cares? I mean, it's about what's best for the girl. And that's what I like about this film. What does it take to be a good parent? What are the racial overtones here? And how should one navigate? I like that. But what I didn't like was the fact that there is a lot of harsh profanity in this film that mars this film. No reason for that ever. There's especially no reason in this film because the audience they're going for is the family. And many of us, me included, just don't want to be bombarded with harsh profanity. I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5 for family friendliness.
All right. Sounds like we're 3 strikes for 3 strikes. Thank you, Bob.
So the movies you watch this weekend, you may want to rent them. All right, that's it for this edition of CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
We want to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a festive Friday and a wonderful weekend.